hidden among acres and acres of endless rubble. It was a landscape that to many observers was reminiscent of some long-lost civilization, a Pompeii for the modern age. But evidence that this apocalyptic scene was the result of more recent events was inescapable. When you ventured out into the streets, the noxious stench of rotting bodies filled the air. In anticipation of her arrival, Morris was warned about the dangers of contracting Hamburg throat and told she should be careful not to drink tap water without first boiling it. Little had prepared her for a scene of such utter devastation. The British Army pamphlet, simply entitled Germany, that she had been handed on her outward journey, was primarily concerned with the mission ahead. It emphasized Britain's endeavour to win the peace through an uncompromising military occupation and told British occupiers that they were about to meet a strange people in a strange enemy country. There was, however, little time for reflection. It was her first day of work, and after a breakfast of beans on toast in the ground-floor canteen, Catherine Morris set out for her orientation interview in the centre of this shattered metropolis. To get there, she jumped into one of the numerous Volkswagen Beetles lined up outside her block of flats, a sort of occupiers-only taxi rank. While mass ownership of Hitler's famous People's Car had never become a reality for the German people, in June 1945, the British authorities had taken over the Volkswagen factory in Wolfsburg and were soon turning out hundreds per week for use as staff cars. She noticed her German driver, along with all his colleagues, was unshaven, hardly the gravest concern amid the devastation of post-war Hamburg, but surprising nonetheless. This, it turned out, wasn't a fashion choice or a uniform requirement, but rather the result of an ongoing shortage of soap and razor blades. Morris arrived at the British Control Commission headquarters, located in an imposing grey building overlooking the Bleichenfleet Canal that had served as the Gestapo's centre of operations in Hamburg. She was taken to her office, which was evidently a former interrogation cell, complete with thick steel bars and a self-locking door. Morris had been assigned a role in the Welfare Department, a bureaucratic arm of the Control Commission that concerned itself with the well-being of British personnel, something akin to a modern HR department, albeit one based in a former Gestapo torture chamber. In the coming days, she would seek out the assistance of a nearby florist to help brighten up this starkly unwelcoming workplace. Catherine Morris was one of many thousands of British civilians and soldiers who lived and worked in the towns and cities of northwest Germany between 1945 and 1949, each playing their own small part in what was nothing less than an attempt to rebuild a country from top to bottom. Some were tasked with denazification, whether that be hunting Nazi fugitives or removing swastikas from public buildings. Some were employed in re-education, writing new school textbooks or removing fascist literature from public libraries. Legal experts set out to reform the judiciary. Economists attempted to rebuild a war economy shattered by years of bombing raids, and crack squads of soldiers tried to locate secret technologies. Britain's attempt to win the peace in Germany was an undertaking unprecedented in both its scale and complexity. The post-war years were a time of extreme uncertainty, hardship and distress for people across Europe. From Berlin to Bratislava, material deprivation was the order of the day, while recriminations swirled among defeated and exhausted populations. For the people of Germany, life seemed to have suddenly and traumatically ground to a halt at the end of the war. 1945 became known to some as Stunde Null, 0 hour, signifying a total break with the past. In comparison, Morris and her Control Commission colleagues were the lucky ones, provided with ample rations of food and alcohol, as well as a generous selection of British-only clubs and dance halls to enjoy them in. On the shores of the Außenalster, the large artificial lake contained within Hamburg's city limits, lay one of the most ostentatious, the Atlantic Club. The grand white facade of the world-famous Atlantic Hotel had miraculously remained more or less intact during the war.